The following is an exclusive production of Minutemen Command. The Flagship Pod with your hosts, ESPN personalities Mike Corey and Rene Christian is on the air. Brought to you by Todd Fritz Roofing with insight and info from UMass and Mac Insiders. From the Command Studios, here are your hosts, Mike and Rene.
Hey, folks, welcome back. Another edition of Flagship Pod. Christian McCollum with Rene and Golia. A little bit different timing this week. Obviously, UMass had a game Tuesday night. A lot of times we like to record on Tuesday, but we figured we'd wait and see the results of the game before we recorded. So we're recording a little bit late. Forgive us here. But, Rene, welcome back. Had some travels?
Yeah, so obviously it's Wednesday, as Christian just said. So I'm pretty sure everybody listening or watching this pod knows that I was doing the Western Michigan Northern Illinois game last night, which was on the exact same time as the UMass game. So obviously I couldn't watch the UMass game. I tried to, was keeping track on the phone, saw there was a weather delay, and then on the plane today, did a little research. But in my game, though, Western Michigan's another, good school in that, like a few years ago, wasn't playing well, Christian, right? They bring in a new coach. He's able to rebuild just like that. They're 7-4. 6-1 now in MAC play. I'm pretty sure if Buffalo loses tonight, Western Michigan's in because they have the tiebreaker with everybody else except Miami. So if Buffalo loses tonight, because they don't play Buffalo, so there's no head-to-head. So if Buffalo loses, Western Michigan, regardless of what they do against Eastern Michigan next week, they're going to be in the MAC championship. Of course, they can just win out. They were the only team that actually controlled their own destiny here the last couple of weeks, and they looked good. Rush for similar to Ohio, Western Michigan had 3 guys over 100 yards rushing against Northern Illinois, 361 yards, I think, as a team rushing. So they look good. But, when I see these teams, and we've talked about it, the last 5 years, because we did the graphic last night, the last 5 years, there's been a different MAC champion. Think about that. There's no other conference in the country that has parity like that. 5 different teams in 5 years, and we thought UMass would just jump into the fray this year. Obviously, it's well chronicled. It didn't happen. I've got a long way to go. But seeing in 3 years what Western Michigan's done, it's encouraging what they can do and what Buffalo did last year. And I know the UMass fans are like, it's kind of funny because, Walt Bell, who was the first hire from Ryan Bamford, is the offensive coordinator. He's in a good place now. But it was funny. I saw on Twitter, on X, some UMass fans were just had always blasted him. They were like apologizing to him. So, but yeah, the MAC it's the right conference. We just got to get stuff going. But since you were dialed in with Minuteman Command, give me your assessment on the game last night at Ohio. And I had Ohio earlier in the year, so they were really good early. I think they kind of got into a lull in the middle, but obviously I think they're getting a little better here towards the end, fighting to get into the championship game themselves.
Yeah, so kind of relative to the whole season, right? Like it says, say what you will about it, but this losing 42-14, it wasn't an embarrassment, right? And that says a lot about UMass program. But it wasn't like a game where they looked completely overmatched as they have in certain times this season. They were able to move the ball quite frequently and with some regularity, even shuffling through all 3 quarterbacks. They had to. Grant Jordan came in and made some great plays. AJ had things going before he got, blasted down. Brandon Rose looked okay. So they were able to move the ball. They put themselves in some competitive situations defensively, especially early in the first half, where they had some, third and mediums, had chances to get off the field and just didn't, right? Like first drive, kind of, in my opinion, questionable late hit, extends a drive to get a touchdown. Second drive, they have a quarterback kind of corralled, going to stop him for a loss. 3rd and 4 or so, he makes a couple guys miss, end up a touchdown. Another drive, guy drops an interception in the end zone. So they didn't play well, right? They didn't play well on the surface, but it wasn't an embarrassment, and they were competitive. But again, they didn't make those plays, right? And I know a few weeks ago, it seems like maybe it was longer ago, we talked about, if they would have done this and if they would have done that, they could have had, 2 or 3 wins. But in reality, football's a game where that's their best right now, right? So you can't just say, if you that was their best in those games, and it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough against Bryant. It wasn't good enough against Buffalo. It wasn't good enough to make it closer, even closer last night. And I don't, maybe it's just me and you, Rene, that are saying like, if you did this and that, but like I said, in reality, that's their ceiling. That's their ceiling right now. And their ceiling was not good enough. So there's no way around that.
Yeah. You can't sure. They're not a good team. You know, you hate to say it, but it's factual. It's reality. I do think it's hard, you know, with 3 quarterbacks, like, and I kind of, you know, I get it. You're going to play, you're playing everybody now. You're just trying to get reps and see. And then the other thing you got to think about as well is like, and I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face, and I'll continue to talk about it. Roster retention is important. Now, there's probably a lot of people out there like, don't retain everyone, start over. I mean, there's players on that team that are good. You have to retain.
Yep.
It's, you know, if you lose your good players, and they're going to have to fight to keep them because, listen, they've already been, I don't want to say tampered with, but there's no rules out there. So all the players can't talk to anyone. The agents can, the unsanctioned agents. So here's the reality. All those deals have been done, honestly. The players on UMass and players that hopefully UMass is trying to get in here. Those deals should already all be done. I don't know if they are or not. But you need to retain some of your talent. And then, you know, he's going to hit high school hard and start to build. And I will say this, it was funny talking to Thomas Hammock, the coach of Northern Illinois, where they're leaving, they're going to Mountain West. And we had a real candid talk to him. And I asked him about, you know, Western Michigan and Coach Taylor and the job he's done there. And he basically said, listen, their administration, their power to be, basically put a plan in, and they said they've really, and I don't know, maybe you know, I don't know what the money is at Western Michigan, but they said they have really supported them and have given them the money they need, and it's translated into bowl games 2 years in a row now, and most likely a trip to the MAC championship and a chance to win a MAC championship. So at the end of the day, and we've said it, there has to be a all hands on approach from the top down, everyone with the same vision, same goal, pulling the same way. And yeah, and now, you know, you look at next week, Christian, you know, you play Bowling Green at 4:30 in the afternoon. Just kind of weird. It's funny. I was telling my partner, Courtney Lyle, I said, it reminds me when I was in high school, we played a Jewish high school during Rosh Hashanah, and they couldn't be out at night. And we played them at 4:00 in the afternoon. That's kind of what it reminds me of, you know.
Yeah, JV game. You didn't play many of those, though, Rene, did you?
Listen, probably not going to be a lot of people there. You got to bring your own juice. That goes for Bowling Green, too, right? And, you know, they're not going to a bowl game. That is just straight up a game for pride. If you're UMass, you don't want to go winless. And if you're Bowling Green, you don't want to lose to UMass, right? So it's this is a pride game. Just go out and play hard and see what happens. But yeah, to say the season's been a disappointment is like the biggest understatement in the world of understatement and understatements. It's just I don't know, man. It's really hard to put a finger on it. And I know people will attack me. I know because they already do. I don't want to say attack because you can say whatever you want on X. It's fine, but like, you know, everyone has their reason why this happened this year. I think, though, even the people that weren't really, I don't want to say pro UMass, even the people that are negative UMass, right, want UMass to succeed, but they're negative UMass because they want to see wholesale changes. And I get that. I mean, I will never disrespect people's opinions because they're going to vary. We all have different opinions, but we can be civil and agree to disagree. And I've said that to people on X, right? But even those people, Christian, are probably sitting back saying, man, this is, I didn't think it could be this bad. And I think we're all kind of in a state of shock here as the season comes down that it was just as bad as it was.
Yeah.
So again, there's just absolutely nowhere to go but up for Joe Harris-Simiak, his staff, his players. We know that Thorbjorn is going to run football. And so we'll see what Thor does. I am curious. I have no inside knowledge. There's got to be other changes, right? I think Joe will do self-reflection, and he's going to look at his staff on and off the field. Again, a very important part. And I'm curious what changes he does, maybe with the staff or off the field personnel. So we'll sit back and see. But I do want to ask you, Christian, because you are dialed into recruiting. What's the recruiting been like for UMass now that they're 0-11 and a game away from having a winless season? What has it been like?
You know what? I'm stunned that the class has not collapsed, right? And that will all. First of all, there's always decommitments, right?
Sure.
It is from Ohio State to Alabama, Georgia, all the way down. Every school in America suffers decommitments. UMass had a decommitment kid flip from UMass to Coastal Carolina. You kind of want to win those battles. You don't want to lose a kid. There's another kid that's being recruited heavily by Wake Forest. Listen, if you're UMass and you're in on a kid and Wake Forest comes in and says they want him, a couple things. Number one, that means you did a pretty good job scouting the kid, right? Now Wake Forest wants him. Number two, if that kid ends up flipping to Wake Forest, I'm not sure he will, but if he does, you can't fault anybody, right? Like if my kid had a choice between UMass and Wake Forest, it wouldn't really be much of a choice, right?
And you don't burn those bridges, because if it doesn't work out at Wake Forest, these kids always want to come back home or come back to a school that was really good in recruiting him that you just missed out on. It happens all the time.
Sure. So I am almost certain you will see additional decommitments from this UMass class, and that's not a positive. But considering, don't think that one or two decommitments is a symbol of like it's falling apart. It's not, right? That, like I said, that will happen at every school this year. There will be one or two decommitments. They might be bigger. Some might be bigger than others. That individually represents like a loss. But overall, the staff has done a pretty good job of keeping these guys in the fold, right? Which is really difficult. Now, maybe it will balloon to a number that I don't recognize right now. And oftentimes, you can be the last one to know when you're attached to the school that they're committed to. But as it stands right now, I expect the majority of this class to stick together. And the other thing that I like about this staff, a lot of times I've been around staffs, they don't even want to hear it. Like, hey, so-and-so is looking around clearly. Are you worried about that? No, it's all good. We talked to him. He's all in. It's like, are you just sticking your head in the sand? Because the kid's visiting other schools left and right. You got to, do something. This staff is on top of it in terms of they've got conditional backup plans, right? It's like we're talking to X, Y, and Z. If we lose A, B, or C, we were already warmed up to go to another guy. That takes a lot of understanding who you are, where you are, rather than just to say, it's all good. We got it. It's going to be great, to really, really cover your bases. That's important. I've seen staffs not do that. The other thing I think it shows is the high school kids, number one, their parents, number two, and there's always an element of whether it's your high school coach, high school position coach, trainer, advisor, now agents. Those guys are all involved as well. Those guys, all those groups, the kid, the parent, family, the coaches, the trainers, they all clearly believe in what UMass has right now, their staff, right? Yeah. They know their own 11. They see the score. They see the, everything that's out there. And for those kids to stay committed, I've talked to a handful of them and those people, and they clearly believe that this staff has what it takes to build. Now, a lot of that, when you're dealing with a lot of things you should be selling is, hey, we need you to come in here and play and help us. So that will help get you some guys and keep some guys. But I think they've done a really good job. And one more thing on Coach Harris Simiak, I don't know if I've ever really defended him on here. I think I made it pretty clear that I think he's the right guy for the job. Him coming to UMass is very exciting to me personally. As I've said before, I followed him from afar. A lot of respect for him. And, people that don't think he's the right guy for the job, I can't argue or debate them, right? They probably have more facts and more evidence, and I wouldn't want to get into debate with someone like that and try to stack it up. So if you don't feel he's the right guy, I can't argue with you. But I do. I really do. And just being around him and some of the things he says, he's got the makeup of a leader, right? And I know he's mentioned that thing last week about I have to remind myself that I didn't forget how to coach. And that was genuine. I was sitting 5 feet away from him when he said that. And that was genuine. And he didn't forget. You don't forget how to coach when you're his age, right? Maybe the game will pass you by when you get older. But when you're his age, you don't forget how to coach. And so he knows the X's and O's of the program. Now, we've talked about, mistakes he's made. And some of them, you could say, oh, it's the OC, it's the DC. Well, at the end of the day, it's the head coach. Yeah. And we've talked about those mistakes, whether it's the Buffalo game, the Temple game, wherever it is. So he's not without criticism, but just being around him, understanding, believing he understands the X's and O's. I know a lot of people don't love all the analytical decisions he's made, but those are sound in my opinion. And then it just kind of comes down to, can you lead young men, right?
Yeah.
And just seeing the way he talks, how genuine it is, I just firmly believe that he checks that box as well. It's almost, I see everything these days through the prism of a dad. So yeah. I'm not trying to, to me, he's someone that was raised the right way, right?
Sure.
And I mean that from his parents, and I mean that from his coaching influences, going back to Springfield College with Coach Long, PJ Fleck at Minnesota, Greg Schiano at Rutgers. You can see that he was brought up as a person and a coach the right way. And I think those things are they're gonna matter at some point during his tenure here.
Couple things. So when he was at Maine and he was head coach, he was like FCS Coach of the Year. Like he had all kinds of awards. Like he was Bob Chesney in New England before Bob Chesney. And now look at Bob Chesney.
Yeah.
I mean, JMU was probably not even going to be able to keep him.
Nope.
Right? He's probably going to get a P4 job here after 1 year. And I do think, though, the fact that he went and didn't stay a head coach, he was a coordinator, not that he has to learn to coach again, but like he does have to go through some things. And I also think the on-field decisions, and I don't know if he's commented on this or not, there's no doubt someone that watches more football than probably I watch more football than any normal human being in the world because it's my job.
Yep.
And I watch coaches make game time decisions every week, right? That's what I'm watching, right? In live time. I do think a lot of the decisions he made in game was a product of because they're having a bad season and they were 0-8 and 0-9 and 0-10. I honestly think that influenced a lot of what he did and the fact with injuries. And I say that because I do think there's some decisions if they were a 3-3 team or fighting for a bowl game, and he would have made different decisions if his team, that you got to take that into account. But yeah, I do too. I think he's the right guy for the job. And here's the other thing too, and I talked about it. It's not apples to apples, right? With Donnie's team last year. Like Donnie's team, we talked about it. They ended up underachieving in that they were a pretty good team that probably should have won 5 or 6 games last year. Lost a lot of games at the end. In the old days, when a coach got fired, Joe would have took that team over, right? There was no transfer portal. And so you would have said, okay, let's see how he can coach with these same players, right? So you can kind of see what the new coach does with the old coach's players, right? Well, it's not like that anymore. He had to replace 46 players. I mean, as soon as a coach gets let go, everyone goes in the portal, and the new coach doesn't have a chance. Now, remember that rule changed this year. If someone gets fired, they can't leave until the new coach is hired, and then 5 days after that. So it kind of gives that. Now, listen, they're still making deals back door, right? But at least they're legitimately still enrolled in the school, and it gives the new coach a chance. Joe didn't have that. So that's why you definitely have to, I don't want to say throw this year out because, listen, they're judged on this year. We talked about it. I said they were going to be judged on the MAC play. Horrendous. They failed. They know that. It just is what it is. But they're going to get a chance to go forward. And a couple weeks ago, it was put out on X that the money spent on the roster was $1.5 million. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
And again, I didn't confirm that. I just said that was out there. There was some pushback from some people that said that figure wasn't right. I never got told what the figure is or was. But let's say it's not 1.5. It was probably at least $1 million. I mean, they spent money on the roster, right?
Sure.
I have it on good authority. Like Ryan laid out, they have more money again this season. Okay. And I only say that in that, like, I know Joe, wanted to do like if he's got 30 spots, he wanted to bring in 20 high school and 10 portal, right? He wanted to change it around. But if you're losing recruits, you just don't recruit high school kids if they just to fill a roster spot, right? You need quality kids. So it may not be a 20-10 this year again. It may be a little more portal heavy. Maybe it's 15-15. I don't know, whatever it is. And I just say that, and like, you have to spend the money wisely. And I was big on, and I've said this and I'll say it before, I am huge on programs like not just UMass, but like G6 in general, MAC in general, hitting the FCS ranks. I am big on that, okay? But I'm also big on when you get an FCS kid, let's get a kid that was all conference. Like, let's get a kid that's really produced, right? I don't want a kid that was a semi-starter or he started and he doesn't have great numbers. And I want production if you're going to get an FCS guy all conference. And I'll take it a step further. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day. How about Division II? There's a ton of Division II kids that are doing all kinds of work at Group of 6 programs. I mean, if it's me, I almost look at the top 20 in Division II and look at all conference and look at all Americans. I mean, look what Trinidad Chambliss, the quarterback for Ole Miss, is doing. He was a Division II player. So Division II guys can play too. And my point is, let's get all conference. Let's go after all Americans in the portal if you're going to get people, because you know you're getting production, right? You know you're getting production. And maybe it's a smaller guy, but hey, he rushed for 1,200 yards. He can carry the ball. You really have a good set to see what he's done. And then they're always going to have a chip on their shoulder because they're passed over. So, and I'm not saying you bring in a ton of them, but let's look at some of those guys too. If I was running stuff, that would be a place that I would look into. Maybe they are.
One thing I would say along those lines, right? It's almost the opposite of, I don't know if it was Parcells or Belichick, when they would evaluate talent, they would say, don't tell me what the guy can't do. Tell me what he can do. Yeah. I almost, for this, maybe the opposite of that, right? Like, if we're bringing in somebody that's in the transfer portal, I want to really know, why is he in the transfer portal? Really evaluate that, right? Like, and what's the reason? Own that and say, all right, this is why. You mentioned it. Maybe he's a little short. Okay, he's a running back, but he's a little short. That's fine. We can take that.
Maybe he's a 6'1" center that got passed over, but he's really good.
Yeah,
his arms are short. Okay, the kid's an animal. He can play. Yes. Like, those are the diamonds in the rough you got to find.
Yeah, but let's not look over those. Let's not look past those shortcomings. Whatever they are, we got to know what they are. I think that will be really important. And then the other thing is, let's get some depth. You saw what would happen when guys get injured, right? Josh Nobles was supposed to be everything, right? I couldn't tell you how many times I heard his name brought up. He was the guy that, he was going to be the biggest impact player. He goes down in August. Now we're what do we got? You're mixing and matching. So find a way to establish that depth, because the injuries are going to happen. They're going to happen next year. They might not happen with this amount of frequency, but they're going to happen. So you do have some depth. I know the quarterback room was not great by any means this year, but we said it in the beginning, like, they got 3 guys that they could play. Like, all 3 of them played. They didn't always play very well. And you probably want to upgrade that position at somehow. But, like, make sure there's some depth so that when guys go down, we can't be in a situation of like, all right, we really like where we are at this position, but if, player 1 and player 2 get hurt, we're screwed. You can't be there.
Especially with interior line play, both offense and defensive line. Like, you need, you're starting 5. You're not probably going to get more than 7 or 8, but like, at least if a couple guys go down, there's not a big drop off when guys come in. And that's why, again, I love FCS Division II guys that have produced, because those guys are going to have a chip on their shoulder. I don't want a guy, he started, he was a good player. No. He was a Division II All-American, or he was all conference and his team went 12-0 and the guy was pancaking people. Like, go after some of those dudes. Get a little dog in them, you know what I mean? That has a chip on their shoulder. So
for sure,
we'll see. But hey, man, down to the last week. So here we go. Yeah,
that 4:30 game, like I said, that reminds me of some JV games. I don't think you played in many of those, Greeny, I'm guessing, but I had a season. I had a season where I bubbled. I played varsity and JV, and man, I used to love going out there in some JV games on Monday afternoon and going crazy.
Funny story for you. I never played junior varsity football.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me.
As an 8th grader, I got called up in camp, and I played varsity football. in 8th grade. So, yeah, it was, never played JV. So played varsity from the 8th grade. So next week, that game's at 4:30. I'll be checking. I'm opposite them again. I have Western Michigan again at Eastern Michigan to end my I'm doubling up next week. That doesn't end my regular season. I got that game Tuesday, right? Those games are Tuesday, right? I've lost track.
Yes,
right?
Tuesday.
Yes,
yep.
Tuesday. I double up Thanksgiving. Then you mentioned Coastal Carolina. I got JMU Coastal Carolina on Saturday. So that's going to be a big one for JMU because I was actually shocked that the committee didn't have JMU in that 12 spot.
Yeah.
And I had JMU earlier this year, and they're really good. So I thought they were going to put them there. Now I understand what the committee did. They're valuing the league of the American more than the Sun Belt. There's no doubt about that. And you look at, even though Tulane had a bad loss to UTSA, they beat 2 Power 4 teams, middle of the road Power 4 teams, Northwestern and Duke. Lost to Ole Miss, which is a top. I don't know what they were, 5 or 6 or 7 this week.
I think there's 6.
Yeah, so that loss, they're not going to crush them with that loss on the road. UTSA one isn't great, but there's still a lot in the American, though. They're all still in there. There's a ton of, one-loss teams. It's nuts. So that's going to play itself out to the end. But JMU's still in it. So I'm excited to get them in week 14. So, yeah.
And I'll be spending my week still continuing to try to convince our customers at Irish Sports Daily that Notre Dame is not a lock, even if they win their next 2 games. This college football playoff is crazy. There's a lot of different things, watching the Big 12 championship game. If Texas Tech gets upset there, if Alabama wins the SEC championship game, if the ACC, Miami, people think, oh, Notre Dame's in front of Miami now. Miami gets a little bit closer. They're going to use that season opener to compare. They haven't done that yet. And hey, I'm a Notre Dame fan, but if anyone that thinks it's crazy that Miami could get in over Notre Dame, they played each other in Miami.
Well,
it was 3 months ago. I get that, but still,
likes Notre Dame because
they do.
I thought them in Alabama would be flip flop because of Alabama's wins.
Yes.
So that tells you something right there. And then the other fascinating thing to watch is, Miami was in there. What was Miami?
They're 13.
13. Okay, but Miami can't win the ACC. Right? Are they already
They're unlikely to make the ACC championship.
There's like a mathematical chance, but unlikely. So
yes,
Georgia Tech could lose handily to Georgia, right? The last game.
Yes.
Point being is the ACC champion might not be in the top 12. They get in. They're going to get in because they're going to be one of the highest 5 ranked conferences, along with either the American or the Sun Belt. Right?
Yep.
So that tells you have to be in the top 10 to make it as an at-large.
Oh, for sure. So Miami doesn't have many opportunities to move up on their own, but the teams between them and Notre Dame could move back, right? So it's Alabama, BYU, and Utah. They're not likely to lose in their regular season, but what happens if they lose in their conference championship?
Well, I was going to say that. Alabama, you heard it here first. They're probably going to be the first 3-loss team to make it. Because I think they went out, right? They have Eastern Illinois this week in Auburn.
Yep.
So they're going to finish 10-2.
Yep.
Most likely go to the SEC championship.
Yep.
And let's say they lose that SEC champion to A&M. Mm-hmm. They're going to be 10-3. The committee's not leaving the SEC. They're not going to penalize them for going to the conference championship. And that was always my beef with Notre Dame is they always sit pretty because they don't have if they're in at the end of the season. They're in because they don't have a chance to get knocked off in the conference championship game.
So what I'll be looking for is if that scenario plays out and Alabama's still in, do they move them to 11 or 12? Do they move them back? Because then if Miami moves up, then it's close enough where Miami and Notre Dame, the commissioner said last night that they would then compare the head-to-head and that it would be a significant data point.
Yeah, there's going to be change. Listen, there's going to be stuff happening this last couple of weeks, and the precedent was already set because the committee did that same thing we just said with SMU. SMU lost, and they kept them in. They didn't penalize them for losing their conference championship game. So I'm going to go on a limb and say we're going to have a 3-loss team in there. I know there's a lot of people upset and aggravated, but listen, to me, that's why I love college football, right? Because we're all fans. Everyone has their opinion.
And
Listen,
back in the day, it was boring, right? There's 4 teams.
A computer could be doing it right now, and people would be bitching about the computer. So,
yep. And when there was only 4 teams, there was only a couple games that mattered. Right?
Yeah, no,
now it's like, man, this game matters. This Kentucky Vanderbilt game matters.
Like I said, like JMU Coastal Carolina is going to matter. Like these games matter. Tulane, the rest. I mean, a bunch of American games matter, right? Down the stretch. But before we get out of here, I do want to mention, you said Notre Dame unequivocally, because I told you I'm a special advisor to the Walter
Doak Walker.
I'm having the brain fart. Doak Walker. I told them, Jeremiah loves my guy. I've seen enough. And not only that, he's now in the discussion wholeheartedly for the Heisman. Like he needs to be invited to New York. So hopefully they'll get off their butts and he'll be at New York. But he's going to win the Doak Walker. There's no
best Notre Dame player since Rocket, maybe.
He's good, man. He's good. I knew he was good in the last month. He's really shining. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, competition, Navy, whatever." Pittsburgh was a ranked team. Like he's going to be, and the other thing too, and you know this, he's going to be a hell of an NFL player.
Yeah, he is.
So, but we'll see. Hey, I don't know, man. After next week in the pod, we might just do 5 minutes on UMass and just talk about college football and the CFP and everything going on. I mean, we're a football pod too. So
yeah. So we'll see.
All right, buddy.
All right, Rene. Thanks a lot. See you guys.
See you next week.